Mandi Kerr, today's guest, is the founder and CEO of the Global Hemp Association, a trade show for the rapidly growing hemp industry. Mandi brings farmers, manufacturers, and other industry experts together to strengthen the hemp supply chain and to educate each other. She'll also share insights about her superpower. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. Mandi, thank you so much for joining me. It's a thrill to connect with you.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
It is fun. As I try to have guests from all around the world, and I have done that. I'm excited. You know, I've done this over 1,300 times. Lots and lots of guests from everywhere. And I just moved from Utah and connected with you because of your subject matter expertise and the things that you're doing. But it's funny that you're from my old hometown. So welcome. And we're thrilled to connect with you. Mandi, take a minute and just tell people why hemp? Why hemp?
Oh, it's funny whenever I tell everybody what I'm doing and I mention the word hemp, they immediately say, "Oh, CBD," or "Oh, you smoke? You consume, a tincture or gummy?" And
Yeah.
no, hemp is carbon sequestration. It's a new crop. It's revenue for our farmers. It's regenerative agriculture. It's increased yields on rotation crops. It's more insulative, hempcrete walls for our building materials, safer, cleaner, products. And it allows us to shrink our supply chain and bring manufacturing, and supply chain back to localized economies and provide economic development and growth. And so really hemp is, the medicine piece that we all know is 2% of what this plant has to offer. And so hemp is a lot
Yeah.
of things.
It is kind of fun to think about all the different ways that hemp can be used
Mhm.
in, sort of climate positive ways. I think one of the things that you discovered first was the role hemp could play in replacing plastic. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so hemp is being used right now mostly, and there are some companies that are working to substitute hemp completely or hemp plastic completely, but it's being mixed with other polymers and resins to reduce carbon footprint and increase its ability to break down, through different composting technology or composting. And then 100% hemp plastic is said to be, biodegradable. And so there's always this push for a, a, a carbon smart opportunity, right? We're not going to do away with plastics, but being more sustainable. And then it's strength, right? So when we're talking about big, like in the automotive industry or big packaging, and especially in the automotive industry, again, right? You see them reusing packaging back and forth, and the packaging then lasts much longer because of its fiber strength that it has.
So when we're talking about the automotive industry and you're talking about packaging, describe what you're seeing as you talk to the experts that are doing it. I realize you don't do all of these things. As the head of the association, you are bringing people together and you're talking to them all the time. That's kind of your thing, right? To
Mhm.
talk to them. But
Mhm.
um, what are they telling you about that packaging? That's so interesting. I hadn't
Sustainability,
heard about that.
right? We're wanting
Yeah.
sustainability, and this sustainability really is such a buzzword. What does that mean to people, right? And when we're transporting, we may have a sustainable hemp plastic, but if we're transporting that plastic container across the country or world one time and then throwing it away, what's the sustainability really mean? And so what we're starting to see is a big focus on this circular use and reusable packaging and getting away from the disposables because the pollution is in our face now, right? We see it in Utah. We're starting to hear about it where the countries that it's really affecting are drowning in it. And so there becomes this obligation to large companies to shift their way of thinking.
Yeah. It is profoundly important. I've spent little time over the last several years down in the Navajo community in southern Utah, and uh, that is a community that has really been
Mm-hmm.
disadvantaged in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, 2022, there are still people in the Navajo Nation without electricity, without running water, and without internet access. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always interested in things that could work down there. And one of the things that we've talked a little bit about is the possibility of hemp, and some test hemp has been done down there. What do you have you looked at that at all?
Oh yeah, this is where it drives my passion, right? Is being able to really impact the community. And I look at the low hanging fruit for the Navajo nations or any of the tribal nations, right? The indigenous people is the housing, right? We can provide a much more sustainable housing opportunity that is a basic need that becomes met with a lower footprint or a lower need for electricity or cooling because of its insulative factors. And then it gives them food and enriched soils as well as cleanup. You know, hemp is known to remediate soil. So there's a lot of studies being done right now to figure out what opportunity we have because, again, their land has been dumped on for a long time. And so, yeah, that also becomes very impactful. And of course, what we all know, the medicine and the food, right? The hemp protein and the hemp hearts have a ton of protein in them and a ton of omega fatty acids. And so they're one of the most nutritious, yeah, plant-based proteins.
Wow, I don't think I've ever eaten hemp.
Mm.
Certainly not knowing it. What does hemp taste like?
It's creamy like a macadamia nut almost, you know, a hemp heart. Um, but it's awesome in yogurt or on top of your salads, in bread, things like that. It's a soft hemp heart. It's like a little nut. It's shelled. Its shell is taken off. Sometimes people are selling them with shells, just similar to like a sunflower seed. But then it's also protein, you know, so mixing hemp protein, you know, in smoothies and drinks. Yeah, so we're starting
Yeah,
to see it hemp
yeah.
burger, you know, hemp patties. Hempway Foods has done a great job putting an alternative meat source. And so, yeah, plant-based diets are very well, you know, received and looked after in the native cultures. So,
Yeah, that's incredible. I really hadn't realized that one of the uses for hemp was eating it.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, uh, it's exciting. Of course, you're talking to people all around the world doing interesting things. What are the most interesting, exotic things that you see people doing with hemp today?
Um, I think the innovation in the auto industry, the innovation for paints and plastics, or not paints and plastic, paints and sealants. The lignin and the pectin inside the hemp are it's a highly traded commodity. And so being able to see that. And then I've got a member who has created a hemp skin, a replacement for skin that used to be made with soybean and is now being made with hemp. And so things
Wow.
like that. And then, of course, biofuels and biobutanols. Um, yeah.
Wow, it's just an incredible array of things going on in the hemp world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where were you? What were you doing when you discovered hemp was a thing that you cared enough about to do something about it?
So for the last few years in Utah, I had hosted B2B networking events, and somebody had invited me to attend a cannabis networking event in Colorado to help generate leads for a company. And I took it as an opportunity. One, I was very passionate about meeting the connections, and I realized at this event it wasn't just about selling merchant processing, it was providing an opportunity because they opened the industry with no banking support, right? And so, in order for businesses to to process any sort of payment, right, there had to be these alternative sources or private banks that were backing and coming into the industry. And so I really got to know at that time where the holes were. And I had an aha moment realizing that plastics had just, you know, really boomed as the hemp became, you know, illegal or unavailable, no longer affordable. And then, we know now enough about the plastics problem and pollution. And it kind of infuriated me to think that we've had a solution this whole time. And here I'm at a cannabis event or a CBD event, and nobody's talking about the benefit that hemp had on plastic. And so it really was an aha moment that I wanted to create a platform where people could come together to build relationships and learn about, the supply chain so that they could further business as well as focusing on the fiber and industrial applications that hemp has. And so
Yeah. So, Mandi, are the members in your association, are they typically entrepreneurs, or do you have large companies? Is General Motors a member, for instance?
okay, so I actually have a number of people that work in the tier one auto industry that are very actively engaged as individuals. Um, I think that there's a lot of discussion about what supply chain looks like and what the viability is. And reality is we don't have a supply chain yet. There's a lot of pieces that need to be fixed down to the genetics and understanding what's going to grow well. So for us to see a tier one company come on board, we've got to stabilize our market, right? And then we've got to be able to diversify where they're going to pull their supply in order for them to change their processing and their equipment. And so, yes, we have a lot of big brands from, textile, Patagonia, Levi, large companies that are actively looking into opportunities around hemp and where it impacts. And I actually received, I'm just going to give a quick shout out, I received an LCA, so a life cycle analysis that was done on hemp fiber by Patagonia, and it far outweighs these other materials on its carbon footprint and global footprint. And so they are definitely and have for a long time been leading the charge on how hemp can really impact and make change on the textile industry. And so I don't know, I got off track.
Yeah, that's great. But your members are
Yes.
probably mostly entrepreneurs. Is that fair?
Entrepreneurs. Yeah, yeah. And some large businesses, right? Because some
Mm.
members are companies that are using hemp fiber and want to better understand where the supply chain is growing or who's doing what. And then others are building the supply chain, looking to build these end markets. But in the industry where we've seen best success is when entrepreneurs are talking to or have an agreement and an understanding of what that end product looks like. So all of our entrepreneurs, for the most part, are pretty attached to a end material, either manufacturer going into big brand or a big brand that says in order for us to come on, this is the standard or specification we're looking for.
Okay. Well, Mandi, you've accomplished some remarkable things, building an association, a trade association with members around the world. That's pretty cool. What do you see as your superpower?
Oh, I'm passionate about connecting people. I'm good at connecting people. Um, I've been able to open doors and create this, network of people for others to build relationships, especially during a time of COVID when we switched to being so disconnected. Um, I brought our industry together.
That's fantastic. I wonder if you can identify a specific instance where you connected somebody to someone else, and it really mattered, made a big difference. Can you think of an example? Obviously, building the association of is itself an example, but maybe a specific
Yeah,
one-on-one example.
yeah, I can give an example. Yesterday, we had a networking call, and a young lady stood up and said, I want to give credit back to what has happened. She said, I've been looking for 6 months for an auditor to help me in my project, and on your call, I was connected to one, which allowed me to secure my funding immediately because it had been 6 years looking for, or 6 months looking for this one connection. And so, you know, we now have a success in supply chain and capital movement and things like that because of a network and being able to open a platform like we do.
Yeah, that is a really powerful illustration. As you think about that particular skill, how do you think people can learn to be better connectors? What are the fundamentals that we could practice to get better at this?
I think focusing on what other people are looking for, trying to figure out what it is that will help move them from point A to point B, right? And a lot of times they may not know. And so trying to explore, what the relationship may look like, or how I can add value, or somebody in my network more specifically can add value, um, opens up those connections and those opportunities. I tell people all the time, it's not in who we're talking to, it's in who they know. And so getting to know that person personally so that then they open their network to you.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Mandi, it's been just a joy to connect with you, to learn about what you're doing with the Hemp Association. So we're thrilled.
Nice.
Before we wrap up, would you take just a minute and tell people how they can learn more, how they could find out if membership is right for them? Maybe tell us what it takes to join. Walk us through a little bit, and then maybe how people can follow you on social media if they're just curious.
For sure. Global Hemp Association is the name of our organization. It's on, same thing on all of our YouTube or all of our social channels. I've published about 250 interviews with different executives within the industry on our YouTube channel, and all focused around the industrial markets or industrial applications. So you can log on and kind of search, from textiles to carbon trading, farming, things like that. And becoming a member is pretty simple. On our website, globalhempassociation.org, you can join as an individual who can support an individual entrepreneur versus a corporate membership that allows, multiple people within the organization, as well as additional branding and marketing and connectivity. We host a number of events. And so there's lots of information on our website where you can kind of follow along.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Mandi, thank you very, very much for joining us today. We wish you every success in making hemp a tool for social justice and for improving or fighting against reversing climate change. So
Yes.
thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers, 4, good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devinthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good. Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.